Heyo, Duckies and Dice Fiends! Welcome to the Chaotic Wholesome Presents channel. We're doing the Table Talk show with Gilmore, who is very demanding today and adding to the chaos. Hello, all. I am Kay. I am one of your co-hosts. David, who the heck is you? And what the heck is we doing here?
Hi, I'm David, and this is the Tuesday. We keep doing dishes, but there are always more dishes. Tuesday talk show, where every week we talk about TTRPG stuff, how to be a better GM, how to be a better player, how to be a better person, all with a focus on intersectionality and inclusion so that everybody can have a good time.
And if you need Cliff's Notes, how to be a better Gilmore, bother Kay when Kay is on the couch, not when Kay is trying to stream. Because look at how sweet and happy this looks.
So
there is
happy.
murder behind this. So hello, I am Kay. I am your other co-host. This heckin' week. Tomorrow you can find me over on Goblin Cave TV playing Uenya in the circus game. They're a My Little Pony tiefling, and it's all going to be fine. See someone in chat? David, you literally just described my night, says Matt.
Yeah.
Yes. Good luck. Thursday, I'm going to be streaming something, maybe more Stardew Valley. I don't know. We'll find out. David, what are you streaming Friday?
Darkest Dungeon.
Darkest Dungeon for the spooky season. And a little something. There's going to be a little something else popping up here real soon. So just keep your eyes peeled. I can't wait to share what else we got going with y'all. But today we are here to talk about chaos. I was hoping Gilmore would be chaotic and like stick his head out right when I did that, because he's been doing that. But
that would be predictable.
Yeah, I tried to predict the Chaos Gremlin, and look what I got. So, I think most of y'all who've been around know that your friend really likes chaos. I love chaos. But I like particular kinds of chaos, because let's be honest, there's only so many times you can cast Fireball without asking how big the room is before it stops being funny.
That number is really high. there are a lot of fireballs you could queue up before that stops being funny.
I mean, it also depends on the tone of the campaign and the party.
Yes, and how many times you kill your fellow players.
Exactly. Like, if you're in the middle of a scene that's intense and you're the chaotic player and you're bored and you're like, I'm tired of learning lore, I'm a cast Fireball.
Yeah. Maybe don't do that.
Yeah. You're not going to win a lot of friends that way, in or out of character.
But if you are in a bar brawl and someone knocks your drink out of your hand,
that's a different conversation.
Maybe it's time for that third level spell. Maybe it's time to blow that third level spell slot.
But what I'm trying to say is, if you want to be truly chaotic, there is a method to making chaos fun, interesting, and it can help move the plot forward. And we're going to talk about that, because I don't know that I'm an expert, but I'm certainly not bad
confident.
at it.
I'm confident you are an expert.
And I've certainly played with enough chaotic players who are also very good about this.
Ooh-wee. Yes, we have. Yes, we have. And so, like, the first thing that, as someone who is not necessarily chaos minded, I'm more like roasting minded. I'm always searching for things to say things about. Is you gotta embrace it. You gotta accept. You have to make your peace, much like the dishes. Like if you've given advice to the kids these days, tell them there are going to be more dishes than they thought.
Yeah.
No one warned me. And you got to make peace with the fact that there are always going to be dishes. There are ways to work around that, but there will always be dishes, and you gotta find your zen. And it's the same thing with chaos. You have to accept that chaos is going to happen in your campaign, because if it didn't, there he is again. Because if it didn't,
there'd be no headbutts.
Your campaign wouldn't be fun. Like we had an episode about like keeping your campaign from going stale. Yeah, Gilmore, get him. About keeping your campaign from going stale, and part of it was like be a little more unpredictable. Like if your players can always see what's happening next, it's not going to be any fun.
Yeah. And a really fun way, as we talked about in that episode, a really fun way to like add some excitement back to it is to incorporate what players have given you, either in backstories or in characters and scenes. And if your players are chaotic and they start throwing out chaotic stuff, and you start throwing that chaos that they came up with right back at them, there is very little more fun. Like, oh, you went into this town and you just decided to go steal this thing, and you got this weird item, and you don't know what it is, but you stole it out of someone's house and you're just wandering around with it. Cool. Sooner or later, you meet a rival band of adventurers who were like, yeah, my friend's family heirloom was stolen from town name, and we're all on the quest to try to find the horrible people who stole this priceless family heirloom that doesn't do anything and doesn't have any value except for sentimental. Ooh, are your players going to pay attention to that?
Right. And it's also a good way to like deal with murder hobos. Like if they have a soul, because let's face it, there are some murder hobo parties out there that don't have a soul. But if they do, they come across a band of bandits and they kill their way through all of them. And on one of them, they find a bag of money, like just a heavy sack of silver and gold. And they're like, dope. And then they're rummaging through pockets, and they come up with a letter, and it's this scrawled in barely legible script that says, "Miss you, Papa. Mama says that we're gonna lose the farm." And then you're like, wait, what have I done?
And the reverse can be very effective for if you're trying to keep a lighter tone and people start accidentally maybe seeing potential darker things and you don't want to get caught up. So like in the Christmas Cookie Caper, we had Chad, Thad, Brad, I don't remember. We had a bunch of names, and the last one was Dad. And no one knows his real name, but he's such a dad. He's such a wife guy. He's such a dad guy that like all he wants to do is show you pictures of his kids, and the kids aren't even that cute. And it was like a little bit backfiery because people started going like,
Are they dead?
Oh.
What happened to the kids?
Yeah, and or just like, oh no, are we killing like a family guy? Like he might be obnoxious, but he's still a family guy. And I'm like, it's okay. Everyone knows he's cheating on his wife. And everyone's like, cool, now I don't feel bad. I can kill a guy. So lean into the chaos. And yes, if dad wants to show you pictures of his kids who aren't even that cute and is cheating on his wife, maybe Liar McFake name will also show up there. Lean into that chaos when you can. And look, here's the other thing. And I have recently had just such a joy of you are gonna hurt me. I see it coming. I have recently had the joy of, in a thing that I can't talk about because it's not out yet, where as a GM, I've had not one but two players who want to push all of the buttons. And it's great. And again, if you look at, there's a cat butt pressed into the back of my head. Thank you for Gilmore. This is truly the chaos episode. Okay. I am safe for the moment. So, and I know, David, this really resonated with you because, okay, let's set a playing field here. I obviously like Critical Role a good bit. I've fallen off of the recent season. I have a much greater fondness for campaign 2 than I did campaign 1, but I convinced David to watch the Vox Machina animated series because it's Critical Role condensed and some of the worst parts are taken out. And Travis, not Fimmel. That's the guy who model. Travis Willingham plays Grog. And Travis is an incredibly intelligent, disgustingly intelligent person who plays the big tough guy. And Grog is so brilliantly dumb. And I think, like, David, you said something like, I hate how much I like Grog.
Yeah, absolutely.
And part of the reason Grog is so charming and we adore Grog is because he's big and silly and goofy and lovable. He pushes the buttons that move plot forward in an interesting and intelligent way. And while he does occasionally start fights, cause problems, it's interesting problems. It's not the kind of chaos that slows things down. And that's why I like to use the fireball example, because don't get me wrong, it is fun to just be like, well, heck it. You know, that is the D&D equivalent of, and then I started blasting.
Great.
And that is fine a certain number of times in a certain number of locations. But if that is the only way you know how to be chaotic, you're actually going to be a little one note and not that interesting.
Kenders, are they Kenders? I am so close to having a no Kender rule in my games because one of their traits is they see everything as community property. And so the example I was going to bring up is the rogue that steals everything all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you're having a shopping episode. Rogue is stealing. You guys are having like a really like intense discussion around the campfire. Rogue is stealing. You go to meet the king. Rogue is stealing. Like, and Kenders, because they treat everything as community property, are always stealing.
Yeah.
And that's going to start PvP. And dare I say, GM versus player as well. Like, I will rain down fire on anyone who wants to play a Kender. Like, wow. Yeah, he's Gilmore's having a journey today.
He's a terror tonight.
And yeah, like, chaos. Oh my God, Herb, hi.
Hey, thank you for the raid. Hello, folks. How is Assassin's Creed treating you, Herb? But yes, we are discussing chaos. We are discussing how to be intelligently and creatively chaotic so you can drive the plot forward, not just frustrate your GM and your fellow players.
Right.
Tip number 1 being, don't just cast fireball in the middle of any important conversation. It's not fun.
I mean, sometimes you gotta kick the general right in the gonads in the middle of an important conversation. But
I may have done that.
Right, but it's and here's the other thing is, like, chaos isn't really chaos. Chaos is productive unexpectedness.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the example that I brought up of like the rogue steals everything all the time, that's not chaotic, it's extremely predictable.
Right.
And you know, like the guy who's sleazy and hits on everyone, who tries to like
Yes.
Captain Jack his way through your entire campaign and then wants you to describe the sex scenes in detail. Like, it's extremely predictable. Nothing about that is chaotic. But if you're thinking out of the box and you are approaching encounters and situations and interactions in a way that is different from, and again, it doesn't have to be extreme, just different than how everybody else is.
Yep.
Like, if you are in a party of lawful evil people and you are chaotic good, then reaching in, like stealing money from, you know, the sorcerer and then winging gold coins at an orphan is an act of chaos, but isn't like, you know, like crazy or game breaking, but it's definitely not something any of the other players in your party would do.
Right. And I think a lot of folks here know I play a lot of face characters. I love playing high charisma. I love talkers. Even if they're not good at talking, they like to talk. That's how I bent the voices in my head, y'all. But my other favorite thing is playing incredibly low charisma characters with a 0 or a negative charisma modifier. Because to me, that's just like, what would the charismatic character say here? Cool. What is the opposite of that? What can I say to make this situation? What's the worst thing I can say in this situation? And what is the worst way I can say it? But also, what is the best, worst way I can phrase something so that it will make the situation funny and awkward, but not break it completely? Or how can I say something that will set it up so that I've now put attention on another character who needs some spotlight time? That is something I really, really, really enjoy doing. Hey, Leslie. Since Matt and Leslie are here, we played Leslie, Cheese and Krakens and I played in a Starfinder campaign run by Matt over on Mimics and Misfits channel. Hey, Rex, everyone's coming on in. And I played a very low charisma android. And there were several situations where it was like, everyone knew I was not a good talker. And it kind of slipped under the radar, but like it pleased me so much because we're sitting there talking. They're like, okay, we gotta talk to this person. And we had, you know, a huge Vesk, giant scary Vesk who's like, I don't think they want to deal with this just waking up. And my character's like, wonderful, then I will talk to them. And it's like, no, you're the other person who should not be talking. And like, just what can you do that turns a situation that will make people react quickly? Because we could have stood around forever going, well, who's going to talk? Well, who's going to talk? No one reacts quicker than when the negative charisma character goes, I will go talk to them.
Right.
Everyone falls over themselves to change that course of events. And it's great. That should be your goal with a chaotic character, not how can I disrupt, but like, how do I move things forward? You know, if you're playing that impulsive character, you're going to go push a lot of buttons, but also like telegraph, I'm going to go push this button and let people figure out how to stop you. There are definitely times to say, I've already pushed the button.
And Herb has a great point. Yeah, there's chaos, but there's also, do you really trust your party to have your back after you do this? And there are two ways this can go. There is, yeah, my party will back this play, like in or out of character. And then there's also, I am willing to deal with the consequences of, and I think that's another like important distinction is a lot of people, especially people who are new or people who've only played with one group have this sort of blindness to consequence.
Mhm.
And like I mentioned murder hobos earlier, like dealing with murder hobos is all about introducing them to consequence, possibly for the first time. And like the rogue who steals everything, consequence. Like when I many years ago, when I was playing my first TTRPG, there was a wizard that had alcoholism, and I've told this story before. And the drunker he got, the higher percentage chance he had of casting a random spell from his prepared spells. And he managed to hit 2 or 3 times in a row fireball, because we had all been in like combat heavy encounters. He queued up a bunch of fireball and other damaging spells, and we set taverns on fire like 3 towns in a row. And so we went to another place and they're like, you can't come in here. And it's like, why can't we? Because that guy sets buildings on fire. He's a drunken arsonist.
And I do think that's really important, because it's a good point to bring up, because having trust within your party is very important, especially if you are playing a chaos-prone character. Now, there are different levels of chaos-prone characters. There is these are usually kobolds or rat folk or Yusuki or whatever, who are just like, I'm gonna grab this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna have fun. And they're like chaotic in that they're just like a little bit on the hyperactive side. And they're very charming and very funny, and they run around, and they're mostly like low level. But Soul in the Emergency Power Podcast is chaotic neutral. We will talk about this in a future project, but at least the way I handle alignments is good and evil, I tend to look at more like evil is actually like selfishness, and good is more
altruism.
Thank you. My brain went to platonic, and I'm like, that is not at all the word I want. So why can't I get the word I want?
Your ace is showing.
Yes. So, definitely at the start of when they joined the campaign, we're like chaotic neutral, leaning towards evil, and that there was a very selfish bent. But I needed this kind of shady con artist character to be trusted, to be tolerated in this party until like their plot and their story came out. I did this very particular ways, a large one by communicating with my GM. This is what this character is at their core, and this is something I want to show the audience and the players, even if the party doesn't figure it out, because the way that parties think about the characters impacts how the characters behave, whether conscious or unconscious. If you are aware that that one of the other players is keeping a secret that might screw you over, you're going to be more tolerant if you know and trust that player more. So because I was coming into a group that didn't know me well, I laid out, this is what this character is at their core. This is what I want revealed as we go through. And said, like, here are some good things about them that I want to show. And Adam did a brilliant job of setting us up. So like early on, Soul was working with like an orphaned half-orc girl and was slighting her money, was doing this in a very quiet and subtle way that not even the other characters noticed. But it was a great little window of insight to the players and to the audience that there's something more to this character, like their chaos, their slyness isn't all bad. And that was a little bit of a fun thing with playing a chaotic character who did their very best to present as a dirtbag, as just a terrible person. hiding some of the more altruistic things that they did. Fun little reverses there. So again, if you're wanting to play high chaos, make sure you know how to do so in a way that pushes the plot forward, and make sure your party knows what you're up to. Because people are much more tolerant if they know what you're up to.
And when it comes to advancing plot, I want to bring up two things. And I forget who said it, but there's this famous piece of writing advice of, if you get stuck, have a guy walk in the room with a gun. And the other piece of advice is Chekhov's gun. If there's a gun on the wall, that wall has to come off the wall and go off. And when talking about chaos and unpredictableness, because I almost said unpredictality, which isn't a word.
Unpredictability is a word, though.
Hi, Candace. Unpredictability is absolutely a word. But with the man with the gun, it's more. Hi, Jason. It's more, if you feeling stuck, have something happen. Just something. Have something happen. And with Chekhov's gun, remember that it doesn't always like find the more unusual way for things to unfold. Not the most unusual way, but you know, I've been playing the Expanse from Telltale Games off and on, and there's an actual gun that goes off, and instead of gun comes out, points at person, pulls trigger, it's gun comes out, someone wrestles for it, and then someone you don't expect gets shot. Oh boy, Gilmore
is a terror tonight. Say hi.
And so, like, both as a GM and as a player, you can then do things knowing that, okay, so like, you know, you see something coming. Like Kay has a great story about the spell haste at a boss fight and monologuing, where you can see something that's obvious that's happening. And it's something that we've done in our campaigns. When you look at Christmas Cookie Caper, everybody gets geared up for this big boss fight at the end. The villain summons a giant familiar, and then something unexpected happens. And so you have the expected thing, like there's the big showdown at the end. It just doesn't unfold the way that you expect.
And this actually ties, okay, so as a lot of you know, I take a lot of my inspiration for pacing, for setting, for how do we move through these things from 80s movies, because that's my thing. And in Labyrinth, David Bowie, Jennifer Connelly, Jim Henson Puppets, they knew they were getting towards the end. They knew they were going to get to the Goblin City and they needed to have a fight. And they're like, but this is puppets. We don't want to have violence, right? We don't want a big bloody fight, but we need a big dramatic confrontation that's going to justify all the stuff these characters have been through. And they decided, like they say in the extended editions and the talkie talk parts, they're like, we decided to have a silly battle. So it's kind of like in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep.
It's like, we're going to fight. You and me. Right now. Right? When I play Kinley, when I play my Himbo Bard, and I cast Vicious Mockery, I have a spreadsheet of insults that I can pick from. And it stops everyone every time. And yes, Sir Didymus is amazing. Chaotic doesn't necessarily have to be destructive. For my Himbo Bard in the home game, and you haven't experienced this yet, David, but I wrote really bad limericks. Because here's the thing. Kinley is a bard, Kinley has my brain in that he can hear a song twice, and he will know it forever. But Kinley can't write. Kinley can't create anything original. And it frustrates him. And so I wrote deliberately bad limericks about the other characters and have random, you got the Thoroughfare one. You were there for when I made Thoroughfare blush. I have a whole list of those. And no one knows how many there are or when I'm going to break them out. But it delights everyone when you bust out something that is disruptive but wholesome, disruptive but entertaining, and relates to the game and shows. And I think this is the cool bit with something like that is when you write something that references something that characters said or did, or something you know about the character, that isn't just chaos to distract. That is chaos saying, I have seen what you did and incorporated. I took what you did and I made it a thing that I'm now giving back to you. And that's when it really becomes a fun thing, because you're just like handing off, like, you did this thing that was funny and creative, and I took it and did this with it, and now I'm giving it to you so that we can all, like, yes, chaotic yet wholesome. It's almost like that's our brand.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like, incorporating the ideas of that, and also like giving like your fellow players and your GM space to react before. It's all about, like, and this circles back to like improv of yes-anding.
Yes.
And so you it's ping pong, it's tennis. You want to hit the ball back in a way that is going to make someone stretch in order to get it. And it's one thing if it's completely obtuse. Like, it's one thing if it's the pigeon playing chess. The pigeon doesn't understand the rules, will knock over everything and shit on everything, and you both lose. Versus being a cognizant, thoughtful player that's going back and forth, because you want to give somebody something to work with. Like when the rogue tries to pickpocket the ring off of the king in the middle of a big important conversation, you're not giving your players or even your GM any alternative.
Right.
The only thing you could do is roll to attack, like you roll for initiative. Like, you're gonna scrap and you're gonna lose because
you're
you picked a fight. You're gonna end
up in jail.
Right. At best, you're gonna end up in jail.
Yes, Rex says, yes, and don't be afraid to leave some space, as that also makes for tension. And you've got to allow the rest of your party to be chaotic back.
Right.
Look at campaign 2 of Critical Role. They literally had the chaos crew. There were 3 chaotic characters, and you put them on a side quest, and it got bananas, but also because they were players who knew each other, trust each other, and understood pacing and consequences. Those adventures were really funny and really fun, and things came out of them. There was character growth. If you are only so I'm gonna reference season 2. One of the characters had a drinking problem, and for good reason. Like, the reason for it was explained in the game. And one of the other characters was like, I'm tired of that person getting drunk before fights. And they waited until the exact right time. And they whispered to the GM, I'm pickpocketing that character and taking their flask. And multiple episodes went by. And the next combat, Characters like, I pull out my flask, the GM's like, it's gone. And it was not the rogue who did that, which made it the ultimate. And this is one of the most chaotic characters in the history of Critical Role. And it was so perfect because it's not a thing they did all the time. If the rogue had pickpocketed it, that's what the rogue does. This was not the rogue that did it. So it was so impactful and so fun. So, the more you do the same chaotic thing, as you said, the less chaotic it becomes because it becomes a pattern.
And it's really, there's so much nuance associated with it, because on the one hand, you have to do something that's unexpected, but on the other hand, you have to do something that is within the realm of this makes sense for you to do in this moment. Because meeting with the king and then caterwauling and speaking in tongues is something that is very chaotic, but it's nonsensical and it's kind of stupid, and it, depending on what character you've been playing, it is outside the realm of what. Now, if you play a character that has been one of those snake bite preachers, and you get in front of the king and you pull out a snake and it bites you, and then you speak the perfect king's English at the king, then people are going to look at you like you've lost your goddamn mind. Like being the hinged character when you've been the unhinged character can be as equally, if not more impactful than being the unhinged character when you've been the hinged character.
Yeah. And again, work with your GM, because if you are this like chaotic, strange character and everyone's like, we don't know what to do with it, this weird, and it's like, hey, we're now going to my homeland, and we show up at your homeland and everyone is exactly like you. Like, this makes so much sense and explains why we don't understand you and you don't understand us.
But the idea of someone stealing my hooch, especially when it's fight juice, like you can't steal my fight. That would not only cause PvP, that might cause like real life PvP. Like we might have to take it to the front lawn and fight it out. And at some point we will do a episode on alignments and true neutral. But one of the worst hot takes I've heard about true neutral is that during a fight, someone who is true neutral will switch sides depending on who is winning, so that both sides lose at the same time. But if you want me to switch sides, if you want to get pushed into a kobold trap, if you want me to cast Cure Wounds on the bad guy, steal my fight juice. I need that real bad. and nothing is happening until someone cops to stealing my fight juice and then giving it back to me.
This was a bottomless flask too.
Oh nah.
I think it was also like rosé though. It was like,
well, that's different. But like,
yeah.
I mean, we all have our poison. But like, you steal my bottomless flask of Granddad, I am going to be monologuing like a supervillain. I am going to hold the water supply of New York hostage until like I'm a Batman villain immediately. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You can't steal my fight juice.
And I'm also going to, I keep circling back to like the best chaotic characters are chaotic in really clever or interesting ways. And again, look at Grog, look at Jester. If you looked at, I don't actually know if Sakuyama's character was chaotic in Fantasy High, but It was perfect because he had a half-orc barbarian, a skinny, this big around half-orc barbarian who was like emo, borderline depressed, whose parents were gnomes.
Yeah, that's gonna be different.
Yes, are you my dad? So I don't, looking at the alignment, I'm not gonna lie, Fantasy High was not my favorite series of theirs. It just wasn't. I watched it. It was fine. It was good. It's definitely the one that's free on Dropout TV. Or on the YouTube channel. But that is the setup for a perfectly chaotic character. Just everything that you expect out of this is not what it is. And again, a thing I can't talk about, and it's killing me that we can't talk about it, but
yeah,
the most chaotic players I know, which is one other thing I can't talk about, and then my friend Kato, these people use magic and rules and things in fascinating ways that most people wouldn't and don't think of. Without spoiling too much, using levitate offensively in battle.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was so good. That was so good.
Yeah, every team needs a chaos gremlin to break the Uber planners out of their gridlock. And that's not only will your GM thank you for just being like, cool, I'm gonna go do the thing, but the other players will as well, because again, I have on more than one occasion left my players to talk and plan too long when I should have been like, they've got a basic plan, clock's ticking, let's go. And again, a big part of being a productive and good chaotic player is knowing when to say, I've already pushed the button, versus everyone's talking, my character's edging closer to the button, and edging closer to the button, and edging closer to the button. Because if everything, like Rex was saying, you want to yes and give people some space to breathe. Because just the idea that if we don't do something quick, that person's going to go push the button will spur people into doing other things. So pick your battles. Do you really want to push that button? Is pushing the button the ultimate goal, or is moving the situation forward the ultimate goal? Figure out the most chaotic way to make it clear that you're going to cause chaos if they don't take action.
Yeah, chaos is all about moving the plot and injecting excitement and a sense of motion.
Yeah.
Because you can have a plot that's moving along. You could have okay, you've done the thing, now it's time to go back to quest, give, return thing in, but an alien drops on the road, like a meteor strike happens, something happens on the way from point A to point B, and that changed it from, okay, we're just going through the motions here and the plot is technically moving, to something more dynamic and interesting. And we've talked mostly about like players and how to play as a chaotic player, but it is important, and Cheese and Krakens said, breaking out your Uber planners out of your gridlock, part like a big thing of Uber planners is RGMs. And I remember reading a Reddit post at this point years ago now, where someone was like, listen, I run these games, and I have these players and we're playing, except they always do the wrong thing. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. They're not following it. So is there like a system or a game where I could be both the GM and the players so that they could be and it's like, It's called writing a book, man. Just go write the book. It's gonna be a bad book, but go write it. And I don't know this person. They gave me the I write terrible fiction and think it's great vibe. And it's really tough to describe how I got, but after many clients and fan fictions and thinly disguised fan fictions and short stories where husbands kill their wives in way too much detail and all the other bad things that I have seen over the years, you see him coming a mile away. Like it's like a garbage truck. You could hear it coming.
Fighting the writer mind versus storyteller mind is where it is a story we tell together. It does take an adjustment. That is correct, Rex. I'm also going to say, as a GM, look, if you're a GM who does not have at least one chaotic NPC in your game, you are doing yourself and your players a disservice. Because here's the thing. Most of the time, we have GMs have characters, have NPCs in their games for particular reasons. This NPC is here to give quests. This NPC is here to give this bit of information. This NPC is here because the players have to keep them alive to get through, like there are set and devised. If you have seen Godplane, Mistcat is in there. Yes, Mistcat provides boosts to players. Mistcat provides information. But Mistcat also provides a good heaping help of chaos because you're never quite sure. Can you trust Mistcat? Are they helping? Are they going to screw me over? Can I trust this information? What do you do with this character? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Well, that's kind of the point of the Godplane, is no one's entirely sure what's going on. So I needed a chaos NPC to inject more chaos. Doesn't actually matter in the end if Mistcat is telling the truth or not. You just need to either believe they're telling the truth or believe they're lying and have just enough reason to question that. That's the goal of that NPC. Put some chaos in. So have them give your players information. The players are like, do we trust it? Do we not? What is this? They will come up with so much fun stuff that this NPC is or is not up to, and I promise you'll end up stealing some of it.
Oh yeah. And it's always important to have that question mark there. It's always and it could be a MacGuffin, it could be a person. It's easier when it's a person, but you always want to have an element of what is this and where is it going? Like in one of my games, I put a mysterious coin that had a mysterious insignia on it. And it's going somewhere, and there's like this whole plot thing but it also gives me an opportunity to go, well, this bit of fuckery is happening now, and you don't know why, and then you find another one of these insignias. In another game I'm running, there is a Githyanki that just occasionally shows up by the party. And they're like, who is this? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe you should find out. And I know, but that gives me the ability to put things in places that cause the players to question, to react, to interact. It gives them something to dig into. And it also gives me the ability to take it in a different direction. Like, said Githyanki right now is this person that works for this person that, has a goal in mind. But if all of a sudden they're like, there's a way for us to get the corner market on potatoes, then it's going to be like, turns out the Githyanki guy works for the potato cartel, and that's going to be a problem. And that gives you as a GM flexibility to go, okay, we can pivot here. And so like there's an air of mystery and there is an air of flexibility. And like one of the coolest things that I have seen, one of the coolest mechanics that I've seen evolve is, again, in my first game, our DM gave us magical pocket lint, and it was basically his get out of jail free card. It was more for him than it was for you because, you know, it was 2001. We were stuck at a boarding school. We had one PHB. Like, encounter design is just a whole new thing. And so, like, you know, if we look around and the entire party is dying, then we could grab the magical pocket lint, and then the GM could do something to help us. And then there are other times where we'd be like, well, I've gotten myself into trouble, magical pocket lint, and he's like, it does nothing. But it ended up being this, like, storytelling tool. And this way for him to go, hey, you feel some, like, warmth in your pocket, and you reach in and it's the pocket lint. What is the pocket lint? And you know, whether it be the Gif Yankee or Mistcat or the pocket lint or the weird orb you picked up, these are all ways to avoid exposition dumping. And ways to encourage your players to explore in a particular direction.
Yes. And it's especially true for horror, but in anything, we don't understand everything about our world. We talk all the time about how streaming is alchemy, right? I can set it up and push go live, and sometimes it goes live, but it's not right and it doesn't quite work. So having chaotic NPCs, having places where the rules don't necessarily seem to make sense to the players, and abundance, having too much of that throws them out and makes it uncomfortable. But having enough of it encourages them to theory craft, encourages them to question their world, encourages them to be curious and not just assume that they understand what's going on and what's working. And you want some of that curiosity, because it's kind of like you were talking before. You get to the end. I played a bunch of JRPGs, y'all. JRPGs, my bread and butter. There's the JRPGs where you fight all the way to the end. You're in a cave, you're in a dungeon, you go all the way down, you get to the end, you get the thing at the end, you fight the boss, and then you have to leave the dungeon, trek your way back out. Versus the ones where it's like, you fought the boss, now you're back at town, or now you're, you know, whatever. Don't make players, even if it's chaotic, even if it's, yeah, this shouldn't really work, but here we are. Better that than, cool, now reverse dungeon crawl out after the boss fight.
Yeah.
And again, if your players throw out something very chaotic, make a note of it and circle back to it. If someone uses a wish spell to wish that every single person in the world has a pet cat, probably going to be a bunch of cats in the rescue shelter later.
In addition to that, that becomes an extinction level event. Like, we not everybody has cats, and there are, like, entire populations of creatures out in the world that are going extinct because these cats are just wandering around. So if 7 billion cats on this earth, nothing, like, the bee population gone, spiders gone, just everything, every good bug and small creature out in this world instantly gone. But hey, the rat problem in New York would immediately be solved.
But yeah, figure out what is so. Stephanie has done this to me a couple times. Kinley has done or said something offhanded. One of the most one of the best chaotic players that I know is in the Emergency Power podcast and has an incredibly high medicine thing. And we were checking on something. He was doing a medicine check to try to help a sick, injured character. And made a joke after rolling a freaking nat 20, because of course he did. Said something like, you know, if we had a broom, we could beat the devil out of them. He said as he was trying to like cure them, not knowing that in that room, one of the characters listening was a tiefling.
Ooh.
And if you think that is not circling back and you get to watch that chaotic player deal with the consequences of their own statements. Use that, do that. You as a GM, you as a player, if you are with a chaotic person, again, no one here is advocating like Bob Ross. Yes. No one here is advocating for shutting down chaotic players. We love chaotic players. We love chaotic GMs. But again, if you let chaos exist in a vacuum, that chaos starts to feel out of place and strange. So if someone does something chaotic and you come up later and are like, hey, you did this, you said this, why? Depending upon the player or the situation, you know, if you're just like, it's random violence, and you come up later and go, why did you say it's just random violence? That doesn't work. But if someone, you know, casts Fireball, it's like, do you have a compulsion to cast Fireball? Is there a reason that every time we go out drinking, you cast Fireball? That is a different conversation. And that can lead to character growth. That can lead to chaos being explained, because chaos generally actually can be explained. And the more you give your fellow players, or your players if you're a GM, the chance to explore, what does this mean? And I think a big part of that, okay, so here's the thing I want to talk about. If you want to play a chaotic character, your character probably, unless you lean into it, your character probably can't or shouldn't have an ego about it. Do you want to talk about one of my favorite chaotic characters in movies, in film? Kronk.
Yeah.
Kronk has a huge ego and amount of pride about his spinach puffs. But all of Yzma's insults just roll right off his back.
Yep.
Most of your himbos, shimbos, thembos are chaotic. And you should embrace and lean into that. Yes, a sweet chaos baby.
And his chaos is very like, it's not just without ego, it's also very matter of fact. Like when this man started speaking squirrel, I was like, you can't be out here just talking to the woodland creatures. And he's like, this is my buddy Ted. Ted and I go way back. Hold on one second. I'm going to talk to Ted about this.
He's not comfortable with you. Can you scooch
back,
please? And again, Kronk is one of my favorite examples of chaos, because again, all the things that we talked about, where it might be disruptive, it might slow things down, but in an interesting way, because like he goes back to talk to the chef quits, waitress walks in, we need all of this, repeats the order back and gets to work. No one expected that.
Yeah. But also, like, and this is a great example of like, this is in line with this character, because he stops and talks to the squirrel, and you're like, of course he talks to the squirrel. Like, he is the sort of person that would have a squirrel friend and would learn the language. And that's the other thing. He's the sort of person who would be interested enough and empathetic enough and see the value in learning about not just the squirrel language, but the squirrel culture, and then being sensitive to that. And then like the same thing with the whole fry cook thing. It's like Kronk is a sort of person whereby if something needs doing, he does it. And the chaos element isn't that he does the thing that needs doing. It's that he does the thing that needs doing for everyone.
Yeah. And again, I do think, like, how do you play a good chaotic character? How do you play a good chaos NPC? I knew from the very beginning exactly what Miss Cat wanted, what his goals were, and exactly how he felt about every NPC he was going to come up against. How he felt about the party was going to depend on how the party interacted. So I play a chaos character in the circus game. And Oenya's introduction showed up to this group that had been playing together for 2 years, looks up and sees the ringmaster and 2 other people in charge of the circus, and is like, and I pitched this to the GM as this is how we can meet, is, hi, got news for you. I'm sorry to tell you, please don't shoot the messenger. There's been a coup. We've taken over the circus. And the best moment of it all was the character in charge looked around and is like, oh, thank the gods. We don't have to deal with the circuit. You're taking over that part of it? Great. Consider the coup a success. And it's like, that was the perfect chaotic reaction to a chaos character. Because now the chaotic character is like, I don't want to take charge. I'm not here. I'm just the messenger. I'm not here to take over. And it becomes this really interesting exchange. But to do that, you really do have to know, what is the core of this character? What do they really want and value? Because Uenya didn't come there to say we took over the circus because they wanted to take over the circus because they wanted power. They were doing that to try to help other people, make things better for other people. So when it was like, oh, cool, you have the power now. Oh, no, the power isn't what I came here for. So you can come in like, I don't know anything about this character. I'm just going to be chaos. But like, that's one of the things that Kato is so good at in his chaos is he knows Mike Marinara has a hook for a hand, casts prestidigitation to hide that hook hand. And all he wants to do is make sure no one knows he has a hook for a hand. And whatever amount of chaos he has to go to make sure no one knows that, that's what he will do. He's not going to go cast in Fireball because that's not his brand of chaos. So if you're looking to play chaos, what is your brand of chaos? What is valuable to your character? Like, why are they this way? Jester was chaotic because she wanted to make people laugh. And her god said, the way you worship me is to draw dicks on things. Cool. I'm going to make people laugh and I'm going to draw dicks on things. That's my brand.
That is the easiest Sunday service ever. And I think it's important to remember to fold in the people who have very linear thinking. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, like when plotting out an arc in a TTRPG, and listen, something that we can really get into on another episode, but don't plan one arc. Don't put people on one train from level 1 to level 20. Give them more things to do. Make them all connected so that they feel really clever when they put all the things together. Yeah. Don't just go, hey, you see that wizard tower over there? By the time you get to the top of that wizard tower, you're going to be level 20 and you're going to be fighting the wizard. Like, that's boring. There's more stuff to have. And you can't. So let's be fair. Godplane, very much on rails. You show up, the NPC's like, you and me, we're going to go fight a god. There's a lot of twists and turns between we're going to go fight a god
and going to fight the god if you get that far. So even if it is linear, you gotta let people wander. Gotta, if it's point A to point B, straight line, no deviation.
And an important thing to remember about God Plane is one arc. God Plane, like if we really stretched it out, would be 3 or 4 levels worth of content. Maybe 5. It's not 20 levels worth of content.
Right.
And trying to stretch out God Plane into a 20 level story is like, and we'll circle back to the great granddaddy, Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings isn't Gandalf shows up in the Shire, gets high off of his ass on pipe weed, and then sends the hobbits off to Mordor to get eaten by orcs. Like that's not the whole plot. You have how many people are in the Fellowship? Like 9 people?
Yeah. 7, 9.
Because you got the 4 hobbits.
The 4 hobbits. You got the 4 hobbits.
The 2 humans.
2 humans.
Gandalf.
The dwarf and the elf.
Dwarf and the elf. So that's 9. Each of them have their own arcs within that story. Like you have the love affair between dwarf and elf. You have like 2 of the hobbits getting lost and doing their own thing. 2 of the other hobbits almost getting eaten by a giant spider. You have Gandalf repeatedly like disappearing to go, I don't know, see other women, see other men, more pipe weed, lots of drinking. You know, you've got Boromir saying, hey, lend me the ring. I'm not trying to steal the ring. My name's Boromir, not Steelomir. Like you have and then like even if you just look at like the entire timeline, especially in the books, there's the whole Tom Bombadil thing that they just snipped right out. And they don't go as the eagle flies to Mordor. They go to Rivendell first. And then they go somewhere else. Then they go to Gondor. Just the hobbits getting to the tavern where they meet Aragorn is an arc in your TTRPG. And that's 100 pages of book. That is not a level 20 a storyline. So circling back to my original point, for people who think of their stories or for people who are plotting things out very linearly, like especially if you come from like a storytelling background, you've written a lot of fan fiction, now you want to get into TTRPGs, or you're just the sort of thinker where it's one foot in front of the other, one logical thing leads to the next. Break up, like lay everything out, and then look at your key moments, and then with every key moment, come up with 3 ways you can get there, 5 ways you can get there, and then you got to connect those 5 ways to the next point, and then you end up with this giant web of interconnect, and it gets really heady. Get a whiteboard, just get a whiteboard, but it helps you introduce that element of, well, this is seeming really chaotic, this is seeming really unpredictable, even when you as a GM are still on your straight line.
And if you really want to chaos the players, make a connection between 2 characters' backgrounds that they didn't plan, and then put in a 3rd red herring. Looks like a connection, but is not. And watch them melt down trying to figure out how they're connected. Yes, I have a cat in the way. Ribbonanza says, put smaller arcs in your bigger arcs, like bunny hops. There is literally a cat between me and chat right now.
That
I had to move so I could see chat because he has decided to become a door.
When is a door not a door? When it is ajar.
Every time you say that, it takes me back to Quest for Glory.
Oh, man.
No, it wasn't Quest for Glory. It was Xanth. It was Xanth. Sorry. Old school Exit to DOS computer games, y'all.
Yes. But also, I haven't told that joke in a long time, and yeah, it's an awful joke. Don't repeat it. But it is one of my favorites.
He hasn't told it on air in a while. He randomly says it all the time.
Sometimes I say it to myself in the middle of the night.
Yes. But yes, David, and I'm gonna ask this to chat. Chat, do you have a favorite chaos moment from a game you've been in, from a game you've watched? What's your favorite like chaotic decision, chaotic moment that really entertained or changed the course of the game or made you think or question? And I'm asking that to you, David, while they type it. Do you have a favorite chaos moment when someone just absolutely did a thing that you did not expect?
I mean, the levitate spell.
Levitate spell was pretty great.
I mean, every time Kato shows up to litter... Oh! The one that I always reference of the throwaway line of go extract venom from spider. How do we do that? What do you mean? How do you know what? Go ask him. Just go ask him. We have to find somebody who speaks spider. And that is one of the best examples of chaos in a game, because that chaos resulted in multiple NPCs, including 2 talking horses, the rewriting and integration of an entire new storyline, the invention of a new god, and all these other things. And like, it's a tiny bit disheartening, but it's a much bigger, more satisfying thing when your players throw you a curveball that turns into an entire right turn for your campaign.
Yeah.
And like you've talked about, I think it was Critical Role, where the story kind of stopped because they were going to like bury or resurrect someone or something, where it's just like, listen, the big bad is doing whatever the big bad is doing. That's fine and dandy. We have more important things to worry about. And that the whole like spider arc in like that and the orphans, like the orphans are stabbing people now, and I gotta but literally one of the most chaotic things is one of my players was talking to an orphan, and the orphan was like, oh man, the city guard and some of like the ruffians around town, like they're all jerks. Like the grown-ups, the grups are all jerks. And he looks at him and he's like, well, Susie, I've got a solution for that. Hands knife. And he's like, this will make all your problems go away.
To be fair, in his defense, canonically in the story, orphans were turning up missing.
Yes.
And never heard from again. So it was like, oh, well, if orphans are being kidnapped and probably killed, here's a knife, stab people who try to kidnap you. Orphans just took it a step further because that's what children do.
Right. And it's a good example of like working with chaos, because it could have been just like, oh man, I didn't expect this player to hand over a knife to this person, to this child, and then like just let it go. But instead, I made it into a whole thing.
One of my favorite chaos moments, and it wasn't, let me be very clear, it was not a chaotic character. It was incredibly intelligent and incredibly strategic. but it changed the feel of the game. So, Dimension 20, A Crown of Candy. A Crown of Candy is their version of a Game of Thrones. Multiple characters died. Everyone came in with not one backup character, but at least two backup characters.
Woof.
Because like that was the plan. Like this is a brutal setting. Characters are going to die. It is Game of Thrones. There will be betrayals. They got red weddinged more than once, right? They are in a fight at sea, and there is a lawful good character who is fighting at sea in full plate armor. It is his job to protect the royal family. Gets thrown overboard during the fight. Is sinking, has already failed an athletics check to swim up. GM has clearly been like, that character's dead, get ready to bring in your backup, right? Like, he's not dead yet, but the writing's on the wall. There's too much is going on for the companions to get down there. GM is focused on this other thing, and he's like, cool, this guy hits the king for X amount of damage. The knight has a magical item custom made for him that is, if a member of the royal family takes damage, I can teleport X amount of space to them to attack the person who did the damage, because it is my job to protect the royal family. So GM is like, okay, this guy, you know, King, you take this much damage. King is about to die. And he's like, can I use my shield to teleport? And Brennan Lee Mulligan is just like, you absolute son of a bitch. How dare you use that custom item that I homebrewed for you against me? Yes, you can. And now you're not dead.
Right, you jerk. How dare you save yourself?
And again, it is the way the rules are written. It is what that character would do, but it is chaotic because that is not how this world is supposed to work. So the lawful, completely by the books interpretation breaks the law, breaks the way the rules, breaks the feel of this world. That makes it chaotic in that moment. That is one of my favorite moments, right? Use a thing in an unexpected way. Thank God it's teleport and not dash. Exactly, Kato. We have been referencing you all night. Have your ears been burning? But yes, Kato plays some excellent chaotic characters. And and I will also say this. We have talked a lot again about rolling with chaos, going with chaos, how to be a good chaotic player, how to GM for chaos. Embrace your chaotic characters, embrace your chaotic players, because David and I are both better GMs who come up with better modules, because we're like, what's Kato going to do in this place? There is a one shot that I run. I guess it's a two shot now that I run and have run on more than one occasion. There is an entire hedge maze with a map with fog of war over it, because I'm like, if Kato is here, Kato will go into that, which means someone else will try and go into it. So it needs to be, Dave and I are able to go, so what if they do X? And you know what? Some of the things we've come up with, what if they do X? Players have never done X. But because we'll know what will happen if they do X, when they go and do Y, we're like, oh, we take the thing for X and we can apply most of it over here, just slight tweaks. Every so often, someone will do something completely unexpected, like try to swallow a marble. It's a whole other conversation.
In Godplane, we built out 3 additional encounters that so far no one has ever hit, because no one has ever poked the right things. Because we know Kato would be like, you know what? See this thing over here that no one's looked at? I'm going to go over here and I'm going to touch it.
There's a ruin in the fireplace. I'm going to poke it.
Right. Or there's no way we could possibly win this fight. Nothing about this means we get out of it alive. let's go check it out. And though we have not had to like execute them, and it's like an additional like 15 pages worth of stuff in a document. Assuming your players never ever touch the extra stuff that you make, it helps a lot with your world building, because by building out those things, we came up with a lot more character motivations. We came up with a lot more understanding of the world and the circumstances and our NPCs. We invented new NPCs who had their own motivations, and it adds a lot of like texture and depth to the world. Like I'm currently play testing a thing that Kay and I are working on, and one of the important, I'd argue the most important thing that is an integral part of the playtesting is the players are going, okay, but what about so and so? Like, there was a guy standing over there with a cane. What's his deal? And then me going, okay, what is his deal? And then me going, is this something that we want in the final product? And if so, how does it connect to everything else? And already, like, plans that I've had for the home game is right. Kato says, "Well, guy with a hidden cane, guy with a cane is a hidden boss," and like, you do things like you put the big bad down a hallway that the players set foot in the room that's connected to this hallway, and you give them the option of walking down there and getting themselves killed. Because again, it helps you like flesh out and conceptualize your world. And you know, like there's this whole thing with someone who's an ex-mercenary and did some things that weren't explicitly wrong, but are filled with a lot of regret, and just like a throwaway line of, "Oh, well, tell so and so that I sent you," has turned into this whole thing with like this curse, and is expanded our approach to magic, and has that's the other thing, is testing the pillars of what you make is important. So like, you know, in the thing that we're working on, we've conceptualized magic a certain way, and so now that adds context to every magic thing that we put in the world. And one of my big complaints about a lot of fantasy series, whether it be film or books or whatever, is really bad magic systems. And one of the things that Kay and I have talked about with each other, with friends, is some of the best fantasy we've read have really great magic systems because those are integrated in the world. And so not just developing your world and like developing that integration, but like using the unexpected things that your players do to test the foundation of what you built and see that it is sturdy is really, really important. Like Kay, you brought up the marble thing. Like, it shows that what we designed was really good because we could adapt and handle that easily. It didn't break the encounter.
Yeah. So we are nearing the end of this. So I'm going to ask again, because I know Kato and Ty have been come and hang out. Do you have a favorite chaos moment? Was there a moment of chaos that happened, be it a character-driven, be it story-driven moment of chaos in a game that you were in or watching or whatever? Do you have a favorite one of those? Kato says, fun DM tactic for dealing with overconfident characters. Put the big bad in the same place as the ego-driven character. Just knock them out and implement a rivalry for that character to chase. Chaos controlled. Yes. I will also say that in we have an element of chaos that there are certain, it has been done to me. There is a certain character, at least one. I have a couple characters who sometimes look differently and maybe use different personalities or different names, have different appearances. So you might be talking to a character that you've met or that's a major character and not know it because they don't want you to know it. It was yet another salad moment that, oh goodness, that you haven't even told us about. Kato has full orc or half orc, I don't remember, named Salad, who was not bright, who was wonderfully chaotic.
Ooh, yeah.
Full orc. Yes, salad stories are legendary. Ty says, we were being murdered by a dragon and I reached into the pack and pulled out the magic conch that returns us safely to our giant allies. DM forgot I had it and made me roll against the dragon to interfere, and Ty nat 20'd it.
Ooh.
Nice. I think actually one of my favorite chaos things that I worked out with my GM is, look, okay, David has dealt with Kinley. Kinley is my himbo bard, and Kinley is chaos personified, I think. I played Kinley in a Girl by Moonlight game a couple months ago, and I'm going to be playing them again in November. So watch out. Kinley is returning. Girl by Moonlight. If you want to see me in the curly wig with the white freckles, it's coming. Kinley, so it's a magical girl game. Kinley has been sent back from the future. Kinley is from the future, has been sent back to the past to try to stop a horrible future. Is a magical person, transforms into magical girl style, and comes equipped with a bookstore that is self-conscious. Just so you all know, the bookstore is called Shelf Awareness and is self-aware and is called AWA for short. And through the course of the discussions of like, how do you play a time traveler that doesn't know everything, automatically fix everything? It's like, well, they're going to be incredibly scattered and very thembo. Has to be thembo because there are three. Do you know the 3 rules of himbo, David?
No.
Must be broad of chest, pure of heart, and dumb of ass. And Kinley is 2 of those, pure of heart and dumb of ass. Kind of a string bean, so it has to be thembo. And basically through back and forth with the GM, and then just how it very much fell into this setting, we basically decided that Kinley is the familiar. You know how magical girls often have like a talking cat or whatever, that Awa, the store, makes all the big decisions. Kinley is the familiar running around, themboing it up everywhere. Kato says, Salad once stabbed a party member because he needed ink to sign a contract. This turned into a 10-session-long grudge where the character he stabbed refused to help him. It led to excellent roleplay. With a pen. Stabbed him with a pen.
I was about to say, I was like, that's big ink what you got there, bud.
I did that with in the Ravnica home game that Stephanie runs. That's where I play my very creepy Vegetation Genasi, who is a Grave Domain cleric. And in case you all do not know, Grave Domain cleric spells often require blood. The problem is my plant person is a plant person, and they do not have blood. They have sap. So whenever a party member fell unconscious in a fight, they just collect their blood into a little vial so they can cast magic later. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Nobody was freaked out by it.
Oh, wow. Salad crit the attack.
Oh my goodness. That makes it so much better. This isn't a home game that I play with Stephanie, who GMs for the. I'm in 2 games where Stephanie GMs because I'm very lucky. So this is unfortunately not a stream game. But When We Within is very creepy. But you know, if you hang around this channel, you might get to meet When We Within in one form or another, sooner or later, maybe. But with that, it is about time that we wrap this up. So, chat, David, any final thoughts from the peanut gallery?
Repeat the rules to me.
Broad of chest, pure of heart, dumb of ass.
Sigh. I cannot. Yeah. Ty, we will have to hear more tales soon.
Yes. The session 0, part of the reason I need to wrap this up here soonish. So, embrace the chaos, but remember, chaos is not truly chaos. If you're doing the same one note of chaos, then it just becomes expected.
Right.
Like, look, if you're gonna draw dicks on everything, because that's what your god demands of you, you gotta find creative ways to draw dicks. If you're playing a chaotic character, odds are either they can't have an ego about it, or you need to lean into the fact that, like, you need to lean into the joke when it goes badly for them. Definitely helps. If you're GM, encourage the chaos. Figure out how you can build consequences out of that chaos. Both funny and serious. Because, funny consequences that come out of chaos are great. Chocolate sales in Barkirk increasing dramatically was great.
Yeah. God, I forgot about that. And
Paladin.
If you give your players a thing, even if it seems innocuous, keep a document open of the things that you give your players, because it will come back. If you give them ball bearings, it will come back to bite you in the ass.
Yeah, let me tell you, there is a very, very fun synergy that can happen with ball bearings, heat metal, and the catapult spell.
Yikes. Ooh, yikes. And it is that element of chaos that makes it really hard to balance encounters the higher up you go. Because the more tools that players have, the more interactions they have, which gives them more ways to break your encounter. But again, lean into it.
Or again, so if you listen to the Emergency Bar podcast, we're like the main story's on break right now. It's the Skittermander Saga, which is the free TTRPG Day adventure that we are running through. And I play Panatia, who is a slug person, and is a biohacker. And their weapon is an injector pistol. And so you can shoot people just normally with darts, or you can inject stuff into the darts. We went into a celebration, and it's like they confiscate all weapons. There's a locker that is locked, and you can access it, but all your weapons are going to be outside of the celebration grounds. And they're like, GM's like, is anyone going to try to sleight of hand this? And I'm like, this is a medical device. It literally, the name of it is Injector Pistol, Medic. And I'm like, this is a medical device. If someone is ill, I need this. And it's like, this is one of those low charisma characters. This is a character who does not have charisma. Thank you for hanging out, Vivian. So he's like, make a persuasion check. GM's like, make a persuasion check. Let's see if this works. and I rolled something ridiculously. I don't think I nat 20'd it, but I think I nat 19'd it. And they're like, yeah, so in this encounter, you're supposed to be going into with no weapons. Not only do I have a weapon, as a biohacker, I can both attack and I can use that injector pisto to heal. I could put healing serums in it. And as a biohacker, I automatically hit my teammates.
Wow.
I have a certain number of guaranteed hits. So I came in with a weapon with the ability to heal. All because I followed the rules in the most chaotic way possible. But thank you all for hanging out. As a reminder, please find me tomorrow over at Goblin Cave TV at 7 p.m. for Circus the Broken Chain. I'll be playing Arinya, who is my My Little Pony tiefling. And that's going to be chaotic. Trust me. Thursday, I'm playing something. I don't know what I'm playing, but I'm playing a video game. Friday, David, you are playing Darkest Dungeon 2?
Yes.
And if you have not joined our Discord, join our Discord and come hang out. We will not be doing this next week because Tuesday next week is Halloween.
Yep.
So we wish you all a very happy spooky season if you celebrate. We might be doing something fun in the Discord. We're not quite sure what yet, but if you have suggestions as to what you would like to do Halloween, come hit us up. Otherwise, be kind to yourself. Be excellent to others. Thank you for hanging out. Who do we want to raid? Who should we raid, chat? We got Bronze, we nicotine. Nicotine was recently on a stream with Candace.
Yeah. Let's raid nicotine.
Nicotine it is. Excellent. We are going to flip over to the end screen. Party on, dudes. Party on. See you next time. Thank you so much. Bye, y'all.